Every once in a while, I'll place a film in historical context by quoting critical reviews from its initial release. For this, I usually turn to veteran New York Times critic Bosley Crowther. And not because he was the voice of the people, but because he so perfectly captured the high-minded snootiness that characterized the critical establishment's view of motion picture entertainment during the mid-20th century. Now, here's what he had to say about Kansas City Confidential when it opened at the Globe Theater in Manhattan on November 28, 1952. An uncommon lot of face-slapping, stomach-punching, and kicking in the groin is the only perceptible distinction of the new crime film Kansas City Confidential. The fact that most of the violence is committed by the hero, an ex-con out to clear himself of suspicion in a big bank robbery, doesn't mitigate its ugliness one whit. What's more, the practice of brutality in this unenlightening dossier is not confined to the lawless and shady personalities. There is an obvious and sickening implication that the Kansas City police are not only rough when they capture a suspect, but they exercise a wicked third degree. This, of course, does not lend a climate of hope or moral uplift to the film. The actors are drab exponents of the violence that suffuses and corrupts this measly film. Collection of a reward by the heroes suggests, in this case, that crime does pay. Bosley Curmudgeon. He was a blast at parties. Honestly, though, I miss those days when newspapers employed gas bags like Bosley Crowther to maintain a fictitious standard of excellence for the culture. It gave artists something to rail against. And inevitably, these critics fell out of step with the times and went down in flames. But it sure is fun to revisit those reviews today. Now, there's no mention of Colleen Gray in Crowther's lament, but I guarantee you she didn't regret appearing in this corrupt and measly film. That's because she got to work with John Payne, whom she'd first met when they did live television together. Now, she'd initially figured him for a generic pretty boy, but discovered that he was, in her words, very intelligent and a good actor. When they made Kansas City Confidential, Payne had just divorced his second wife, actress Gloria DeHaven, and Colleen was regrouping from a split with her first husband, writer Rod Amato. A little May-December romance ensued. According to Colleen, she and Payne were never actually engaged, but were a twosome for some time. They also made two more pictures together, westerns, 1953's The Vanquished and Tennessee's Partner from 1955, by which time they'd both remarried. Colleen's role as Helen Foster is emblematic of her special niche in film noir, typically cast as the optimistic ray of sunshine, the fallen hero's last chance at salvation. It's the part she played in such noir classics as Kiss of Death, Nightmare Alley, and The Killing. Although she worked steadily throughout the 50s and beyond, nothing in her later career matched the fast start she had making films like Red River and Riding High, playing opposite the biggest stars in the business. Colleen once described herself to me as a stripped gear of the studio system. Preston Foster, who played her father, the mastermind of the heist, he must have loved making this picture because he was actually an experienced marlin fisherman. He didn't get to fish in Mexico, however. The location work for this film was done mainly on Catalina Island off the coast of Los Angeles. Worth noting is that Foster, who began making pictures in 1929, was also a songwriter and singer who had a few hit records to his credit. After he'd retired to La Jolla outside San Diego, Foster wrote a song that in 1969 became the official anthem of the city's new baseball team, which had just become a major league franchise. Foster even showed up at games to lead the crowd in singing, "Let's Go Padres." I threw that one in just for Ben, not that he's watching. Somebody tweet him so he knows that I care. Despite Bosley Crowther's assertion that the direction of this picture was routine, Phil Karlson went on to become one of the most reliable directors in Hollywood. He had a flair for violent action, but was also a master at working with actors to elicit strong performances. Now, although he was as talented a storyteller as colleagues like Anthony Mann and Richard Fleischer, Carlson never showed an interest in pursuing the A-list projects that those two did. He was closer in spirit and technique to Don Siegel, who, like Carlson, stuck to genre pictures throughout his career. One of his films, 1968's The Wrecking Crew, is now back in public consciousness thanks to its inclusion in Quentin Tarantino's latest, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In 1973, Carlson hit the jackpot with an independently produced film he owned a piece of, Walking Tall, a vengeance-fueled potboiler based on the true story of Tennessee Sheriff Buford Pusser. The film, like Death Wish and Dirty Harry at the same time, touched a raw nerve in the public and made Carlson a multimillionaire. After making one more picture, he retired. Now, as usual, I invite you to keep this conversation going on the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed, and to join me back here next week when Noir Alley ventures to many mysterious corners of Europe. Well, mysterious corners of the Warner Brothers backlot, for a wonderfully moody tale starring Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet, and Zachary Scott, making his movie debut as international man of mystery Dimitrios Markopoulos. Be here for The Mask of Dimitrios. Until next week, see you in the shadows.